That's about 100 feet per second more than I anticipated.
How well do Imr Enduron powders work for 7 Rem mag? Watch the video to find out. Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. I'm back with Guy Miner. Guy, thank you for joining us.
You bet.
This is actually part 2 of a 2-part series where we're talking about 7mm Rem mag. In the first story, we talked about the Lyman Brassmith budget reloading gear and kind of an overall summary of the rifle and all that. What are we going to talk about this time?
We're going to get into the powders.
That's right.
And how they work with a 7 mag cartridge.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk about Imr Enduron. So when I think of Imr's Enduron line of powders, I think it's interesting to make a comparison with some of the Hodgdon powders that they have in different product lines.
Sure.
You've got your old school Hodgdon powders like H380, the classic load, 38 grains of H380 in a 22-250, for instance.
That's
where the name came from. Yeah. And then you've got newer, more advanced powders like their Extreme lineup.
Right.
Varget, H4350. These are powders that are really formulated for temperature stability. You're going to be able to shoot in hot and cold and not have to worry. Enduron powders are kind of like that in the Imr lineup.
Yes.
They're formulated for temperature stability, and they're also formulated with copper fouling reduction agents. So they're kind of deluxe powders, I guess you could say.
They are. I got kind of dragged kicking and screaming into the world of Enduron when I couldn't find my old favorite powders for the 7 mag.
Gotcha.
In the shortage, they were gone, but some of this stuff was on the shelf. Mm-hmm. I said, I'll give it a try.
And when Enduron came out, I published a story that covered part of that lineup. So I'll link to that in the full story lineup. I thought it would be interesting for this story to take a look at Hornady's 150 grain ELDX bullets, which are a little bit lighter than what you'd typically find on a 7 Rem mag.
I usually shoot a little bit heavier bullet, a 160 or sometimes a 175, but the 150 should prove out to be a really good deer load. Maybe bigger, but definitely deer, antelope, that kind of stuff. I think it'd do a great job.
And then for primers, tell me about how you landed on that.
Well, what you've got with the Magnum cartridge, you've got a large charge of slow-burning powder that can be a little bit tough to ignite properly. And that's why things like the Federal 215 even exist. So that's what I went with. And I happened to be, years ago, I was actually shooting a 7 mag in matches and stuff occasionally. So I have the match grade version of that primer on hand.
Nice.
So yeah. Should be better.
When we're testing and we're producing data that we're going to share with people, I like that idea of match primers because it's going to kind of give you a little bit better result maybe for your SD and your ES and your velocity.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
You're paying a little bit more, and it says match on it. Should be a little more consistent.
Right.
Hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. Okay, so why don't we cover 2 different Imr powders from the Enduron lineup for 7 Rem mag.
So the first of these Enduron powders that I tried was this Imr 8133. And it's, I chose that for a couple of reasons. It's a very slow burning powder, similar to Rotumbo in burn rate.
Yeah, on the burn rate chart, I saw it right next to it, actually.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was right in there. And I thought, okay, that should work real good in a Magnum case. And actually, it turns out it did. I also read an article that talked about the 7 mag and the Imr 8133, and the writer was very impressed with it. And I took a look in Hodgdon's manual, and it's recommended in there. So I said, okay, let's go for it.
Right.
And you handed me this box of really cool 150 grain bullets, and it did a fine job with those. I was surprised at the velocity we saw. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, because it was considerably higher than was shown in the manual. But, you know, the consistency was good. We got a good tight SD on that. We got close to 3,300 feet per second.
That is absolutely insane. So we're up on the ridgeline here at the Ultimate Reloader ridgeline range, right next to the micro cabin. We were doing some other loading and shooting at the time. Beautiful weather. We look at the chronograph. The average was 3282.4 feet per second. That is screaming. And what did the manual say? Where were you supposed to be on velocity?
I think it was a little over 3,100.
Okay.
Like 3,130 or.
That is crazy. So you got the Ruger number 1.
Yep.
So you've got inherent strength, so you're not worried there. And you've got a 26-inch barrel.
Right.
So you're going to push velocity. You're able to push velocity with the strength of the platform.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
you've
wasn't
also
worried
got
about it.
good barrel length that's going to get you up there in the numbers. But that is a little bit crazy.
And yeah, the manual said they were using a 24-inch barrel, so we've got a couple more inches of barrel. How much that matters, I don't know, but some effect.
So Bill Maher from rifleshooter.com, he does blogs about different rifle builds and load development and that kind of thing. He has a bunch of really interesting barrel cut down tests. So it would be interesting to look for a similar cartridge where he's done a cut down test to look at with the same barrel, same load, same rifle, what different barrel lengths, the effective barrel length on velocity essentially is what you're looking at.
Yes.
And sometimes it's more than you think and sometimes it's less.
Thing that I liked about seeing all that velocity, once I stopped being scared of it, and
Right.
said, okay, this is actually okay. Zeroed the thing at 200 yards. It's only 5 inches low at 300.
Wow.
Yeah, it's with the high BC on that Hornady ELD-X, plus the high muzzle velocity, it's a screamer.
So point blank range is big.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah.
And you had a standard deviation of 14.9 feet per second and an extreme spread of 38 feet per second. So if we were looking at a 1,000-yard PRS competition round, that would be a little high. But for hunting, this is great.
Yeah, 300 or 400 yard hunting, open country, absolutely, I'd hunt with that load.
I'm thinking that, you could go deer hunting, and if you happen to see a coyote,
I don't know how much coyote will be left after you hit it with that.
True.
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
That's a real screamer. Okay. So why don't we next talk about IMR 4955?
So I also wanted to try 4955, and so I gave that a try, and I loaded up pretty close to the book max on that. I didn't know if it would do as well as the 8133, which had really kind of blown me away with the results on that.
Yeah.
But tried the 4955.
And on the relative burn rate chart, we're a little bit slower. So it is right next to Superformance, and it's near H4831, H431 SC, Norma 205, Vidavori N160. It's right in that range, right? So
still fairly slow powder. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, I was pleased with it. It takes up less case room inside there because I was at a compressed load with the 8133, but with the 4955 I was not. There's actually a fair bit of room in that case.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I started out pretty close to max, grain off, and we got some good velocities out of that. What do we average here? 3086.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're moving a 150 grain bullet at 3,080 feet per second. That will work. That will
Definitely
work just fine.
Yeah.
And then bumped up the grain to the book maximum, published maximum of 65.9 grains, and we were getting a little over 3,137 feet per second. And we noticed on this, like I have on other cartridges, that as we get up towards max, the standard deviation and the extreme spread both get cut down. And
in this case, almost in half, right? Because the SD on the 64.9 was 26.58.
Right.
And it was 13 on the 65.9. So going that 1 grain up, cut that in half, and the extreme spread was 69 for the 64.9 and 33 for the 65.9. Yeah. And this is kind of like some of the precision load development I've been doing. I've been focusing first on stable velocity, and then if you have a tuner brake or a tuner, then you can work the harmonics so that your accuracy and your velocity are both optimized. Now, for the hunting scenario that we're focused on here, the whole velocity consistency may or may not be as critical, right?
Maybe not as critical, but accuracy is always nice. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, a little more accurate load is a great thing, and if nothing else, it inspires confidence in me.
Yeah.
When I know I've been shooting little bitty groups downrange, and then there's that antelope out there at 325 yards or so, and I've got to get in position and make a shot.
Yep.
I have a lot of confidence in the rifle and the load, and it's going to happen. So, usually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is interesting experiments. interesting results, and if you wanted to go further with it, you could, but it seems like you've got some good choices here.
I think so. I'm a little bit partial to the 8133 just because I like those big numbers.
Yeah.
But
right.
big velocity number. But either one will work just fine. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll chrono them again when it gets cold out and see if there's much of a change.
Yep.
I shot these and it was around 80 degrees. So yeah, we'll see how it is in November.
So one thing that we didn't cover in the first video is I'm thinking about the specific considerations around a belted Magnum. You've got the belt,
yes.
and you've got the shoulder.
Yes. Yeah.
In factory brass, if I'm not mistaken, the shoulder's pushed back a little bit, and it relies on the belt for the head spacing.
It does. You
yeah.
know, and they chamber real easily, and then after you've done, fired it once, then you've fire formed it to your chamber, and I like that. And you've got the shoulders blown out just a little bit, and you can adjust your dies to where head space is actually right off the shoulder instead of the belt. You get less play in there, less wiggle room, probably better accuracy, and you definitely get better case life. It's nice. Yeah, I don't have any problem with belted Magnums. Some people seem to despise them anymore. They work fine for me, have for a long time.
Sure.
No issues at all. Don't have a lot of them anymore. All I've got is the 7, and then I've got a bigger one.
Yeah.
We can talk about that one some other day.
Definitely. And then on the subject of the ELDX bullets, I've taken a black bear with a 6.5 Creedmoor, and I've taken a mule deer with a 300 PRC. So that was the 143 ELDX for the bear, and that was the 212 ELDX for the mule deer. Very good job on both sets of big game. Be interesting to have that 7mm right in the middle to compare.
That's a lot of bullet to smack a deer with.
It is. And, had I picked a rifle for mule deer, I might have picked something different, but it's what I had on hand nearby because I just happened to see this amazing buck. And I've got a whole story on this, by the way. And it did the job, and it did not cause undue damage in the animal either. So
that's good to know.
Yeah,
it's important when you're shooting game. I like to eat what I shoot, and if half of it gets blown away by some exploding bullet, that does not make me happy. So.
Yep. And if you want to see more detail on the Lyman powder measure, the ideal press, the beam scale, and the trickler, you're going to want to check part 1 of this story where we've got both the article and the video, which goes into more detail on that. Here's our question to you. What are you using for bullets and for powders for 7 Rem mag for hunting? Drop a comment and we'll start a discussion. Thank you, Guy, for coming again.
Thank you.
Looking forward to our next story. That concludes this story. That means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Also, make your voice heard. If you have something to say, please drop a comment. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications because you're not going to want to miss the awesome content that is coming up. And finally, flex your reloading pride. You could look great in one of these t-shirts. We've got multiple designs at the Ultimate Reloader store. I'll see you later because I'm off to go shooting.